I am quite sure I'm not a huge fan of Naguse's politics. I don't particularly know them that well in terms of where he is in terms of policies. However, one of the things that I've been saying for a while is, and it's not strictly on generational lines, but it's largely on generational lines. There is an understanding, even amongst people whose political ideologies are to the right of traditional Democrats or, progressive Democrats, if they entered politics not in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, or even the aughts, if they entered politics later, they have a different understanding of who Republicans are, and they have a different understanding of the media environment in which we operate in, and they have a different understanding of partisanship, and they're much more adept at dealing with situations like we have now. Now, I will say this, I read a piece where Mark Warner, who would traditionally be the guy to be the gangs guy, which is however many. In this instance, they need 5 Democrats. So you'd see 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans get together, and they would make a fake deal, and they would get things forward, and that would be it. And they'd be called the Gang of 10. That was the politics all through the aughts. Here's Naguse making sure that the press understands the narrative that the Democrats are trying to push. Now, I don't know why it has to be him. I don't know where the other Democratic leaders, I don't know why Hakeem Jeffries can't articulate anything remotely like this, or Chuck Schumer. I don't know if he's in some type of bunker somewhere, but here's Naguse making it very clear what the situation is.
If we come to November 1st and these contingency funds haven't been released, if nothing has been accomplished in restoring SNAP benefits, will you call on your Democratic colleagues to reopen the government and deal with these shutdown crises immediately, deal with healthcare conversations once the government is reopened?
So let me ask you a question. The basis for your question is, and maybe the better way to state it would be, if the Trump administration continues to violate the law, if the Trump administration unlawfully refuses to release funds so that families in Colorado don't go hungry, if the Trump administration refuses to follow the law as they have for the better course of the last 9 months, violating statute after statute, if in that scenario these actions unfold, then how will Democrats respond? That, my view, would be a more fair characterization of the question that you've posed, because it does feel a little bit like we're in the twilight zone here, with an administration that is lawless, violates the law with impunity, is now doing so with respect to the release of funds for families that may go hungry. We're here in Washington, you're here in Washington, House Republicans are gone, 6 weeks and counting, gone, literally gone. Won't show up in Washington, won't do town halls back in their respective districts. And somehow the question is posed to House Democrats as to how we will respond. The Trump administration needs to follow the law. And insofar, you've heard all my colleagues repeatedly suggest we would like to negotiate an agreement in good faith with our Republican colleagues. That is why we're here in our nation's capital. The question should be posed to Republicans. When will they get serious about working with us in good faith so that we can reach an agreement? And the passion you hear is frustration with the fact that Republicans could just simply abandon their post for 6 weeks, that the Trump administration can just violate the law without consequence. It should offend everyone. It certainly offends me.
I mean,
there you go.
That's a good way to put it. And that is, again, this is not an ideological assessment. This is how you do politics in this situation. You understand how you're being boxed in, what the narrative is, and you reset the narrative. You're not asking for much. This is not I'm not asking for the guy to go out now and, change every law because he doesn't have the capacity to do it. But he does have the capacity to do that. And just the idea that it's that refreshing.
Crazy.
To see a Democrat articulate like why they're doing what they're doing.
And isn't that what leadership should be, instead of the criteria being how many fundraisers can you chair and how much money can you raise? Because that's basically what Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are there for. Like, I looked up Ned Goose here, and he has taken money from AIPAC. So if he wants, to be a part of the future of the Democratic Party, next election cycle, he should reject that, because I would love for him to be even more in the forefront of communication, because that's exactly how it should be.
Yeah, I'm like, again, this is agnostic of ideology or whatnot. Like, there is no position that he as a Democrat could hold that would be, I imagine out of 200 and whatever it is, 12 Democrats, there may be one or two that are on the other side of this. But there is no position that he could hold as a Democrat that prevents him from saying that. There's that is something that every single Democrat could say. If you're a political party and you find yourself in this situation, that's what you say. Also has the very easy, convenient advantage of being completely true.
Yes.
That the Republicans have been AWOL for 6 weeks, largely because they're afraid, I think, of the Epstein files. That Donald Trump has, since day one, day two, been breaking the law and not allowing for the basic function of Congress, which is to appropriate funds. And his job is to expend those funds. And the idea that this is not grilled into people on a daily basis. The healthcare stuff has been effective, but it does not mean that you don't have to say this fundamental thing, because part of successful politics, particularly when you're in this negotiation, is being able to move the goalposts so that as you bring the Republicans to their knees on healthcare, which is getting close to that point, right? They're going around saying we have a healthcare plan too. It is, of course, a secret one. It is, we have a concept. We actually have a secret notion of a concept, which we're going to reveal in 2 weeks. And I mean, they've been doing this for 10 years.
They're always
with the healthcare
cooking
stuff.
it up. Yeah, they're always waiting for it. But this is also why I just bring up, the difference in between a communicator like this and someone like Jeffries or Schumer is that we are in a new era in terms of what is required of leadership with the Democratic Party, as the base is screaming and saying, reject these corporate interests, become a fighting party. How do you become a fighting party? Well, you have to cut those chains off, release yourself from the corporate interests that are bipartisan with the Republicans and the Democrats, and return to a party that is for the grassroots. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, but when you have communicators that are able to generate enthusiasm about the party, then you get actually people involved. There's people power, and you can have a more grassroots fundraising apparatus that is less reliant on that. And that's part of the fight that we're talking about here, which is the old guard doesn't want to let go of that. But it's also kneecapping the party from being an effective opposition, because if you just sell it to the American public, you can be effective.
I mean, I think that how deeply connected you are to corporate America does implicate, because I'm making a sheer competency argument. And I think that there is definitely an argument that being this close to corporate money actually breeds incompetence.
Yeah, Jeffries is young, right? For example, and he's not doing politics like this.
Indeed, yes.
So it's not, your point is I think accurate, but when there are outliers, it's because the fault lines that I'm describing.
Yeah, I mean, but Goose is probably corporated up. My guess is, that's my guess. And still, I do think that there is a relationship between how many corporate hacks you surround yourself with and how comfortable you are with them, and how much of their training in corporate life has been cover my ass, and their understanding that corporations, at least in this day and age, teach them you can go far despite what the bottom line is. Like your success is not tied in to the success of the endeavor. Your success is tied into your ability to avoid the implications of a failed endeavor. And that is sort of like how we see Jeffries and Schumer run in these instances. I think like it's incumbent upon us then, once we get some measure of a competent partisan party, or simultaneously to also change its ideological foundations. But tell me that this guy is competent. Like this is Hakeem Jeffries on with Jake Tapper. Which number is this?
5.
I mean,
This is
just like, okay, so here he is. We have this internecine sort of battle in the Democratic Party. Again, New York City, not like the rest of the country, but also in many respects, similar to the rest of the country. But at the very least, what we see is a national Democratic leadership in the form of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, the two biggest nationally, powerful, theoretically elected Democratic officials in the country.
Both from New York City, by the way.
Both from New York City. Both constituents of the New York City mayor.
Yeah.
It's not like they're from upstate. They are literally in districts where Mamdani won in the primary and is going to win in the general.
Enough with this garbage. Stop doing that.
But we'll see. But they, for all intents and purposes, neither one of them endorsed them. Hakeem Jeffries, I think, said something off the other day.
Not by name.
Not by name. He's asked the question of, is Mamdani the future of the Democratic Party? And I just want you to be sitting there and imagine for a moment that you did not believe. And obviously, Mamdani himself, he only has so far to go in the Democratic Party. He's not going to be running for president. But imagine how you, as just a competent individual, you did not want Mamdani to be seen as the future of the Democratic Party, or the politics he represents, or the enthusiasm, or like all of the positive attributes you would definitely want. For whatever reason, you don't want this to be recognized. And you're like a reasonably competent person who keeps insisting that you're competent enough to go out and represent your interests. Like, listen, everybody has flaws. Mm-hmm. I would love to be, I would love to be able to construct a house. But I realize, like, okay, I'm a little bit short in some of my skills. I'm not going to do that. Jeffries keeps going out there. Like somebody's like his mom keeps saying, like, no, you're doing great, Hakeem. Like, listen to his ability to answer this question.
Do you see Mamdani as the future of the Democratic Party?
No, I think the future of the Democratic Party is going to fall, as far as we're concerned, relative to the House Democratic Caucus and members who are doing a great work all across the country, as it relates to our need to both take back control of the House, but in doing so, make sure that we're communicating to the American people like we understand.
Wait. I'm sorry. Did you just say, make sure that we're communicating to the American people? I'll tell you something. It would take me an hour with a transcript of what he just said to even figure out like what he was trying to say.
It's like a Marcel Proust sentence.
I mean, let's replay this. This is not a professional politician.
Right.
Like, listen, I've been in these situations. Sometimes it's difficult. You're looking into a camera and there's nothing else around. You can't see the person you're talking to. You get distracted. Maybe the lights have gone off. Maybe, oh my God, who's like, is that a mouse in the corner of the room?
Is lunch here?
Is lunch here? Wait a second. Did someone just whisper in my ear? Hey, dude, what time are you getting off tonight? Like, who knows? But there is no excuse. If you want to say, well, the leadership of the Democratic Party is out there every day fighting for SNAP benefits, fighting Donald Trump's illegal takeover of our government. I mean,
yes,
whatever.
And?
But
no, he would have been a better communicator if he were speaking Swedish right now.
Honestly,
because it's basically like a foreign language. None of the words that he's saying have a connection to the other one.
It's all conjunctions.
He only talked
Like,
for
it was
25
all-
seconds. It's a run-on
Regarding in
sentence.
relation to,
All right, let's play this.
Count the commas.
I'm sorry. I don't know what he's trying to say here.
Do you see Mamdani as the future of the Democratic Party?
No, I think the future of the Democratic Party is going to fall, as far as we're concerned, relative to the House Democratic Caucus and members who are doing a great work all across the country as it relates to our need to both take back control of the House, but in doing so, make sure that we're communicating to the American people like we understand you deserve better than the country that you have received.
Sam, as it relates to the video clip, in doing so, did you understand
I'm
that?
sorry, you're making too much sense.
relatable?
In the
You're making too
context
much sense.
of
You're making too much sense.
pertaining
You're making
to
too much sense. I understand what you were saying.
Oh.
the Iraq.
You would have to say, in relation to, from my perspective, what we're talking about relative to the video, bringing about from the perspective of people who might have heard until
The truth is-
after viewing, gotta win.
The truth is, he could have stopped after this word here. But
Is the future of the Democratic Party?
No, I think
No.
no could have been it. Yeah, I couldn't stop fast.
I mean, like, okay, I just want to make it clear here. This is completely a competence argument. Like, he's out there embedded in what he responded to Jake Tapper was, we need to communicate with the American public. He said those words in the course of trying to communicate to the American public.
They were unintelligible, but
And I have no idea what he was trying to communicate to the American public. It was something that I think he said at the end, they didn't get the country they deserved. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I don't think people are upset about the country that they deserved. I think what they're upset about is the failure of the political leadership within the country or the political opposition to provide what the country needs. Like, it's not like people are looking around going like, I thought this terrain was going to be a little bit more hilly, and
I
I'm
ordered the
feeling
forest green.
Excuse me, like, what's going on? Why is half the leaves are losing the trees are losing the leaves, and the other half are not? Or it's too windy here. Like, it's just, I've never like this level of incompetence. It's just stunning. And as we talk later in the week, we're going to talk about the failure of the Democratic Party. We don't know how tomorrow's going to wind up.
Thank you.
But you see them nominate Mills, and I mean them in terms of like the Democratic apparatus. You see them nominate or attempt to nominate Cuomo. They're not sending their best. They're not sending their best. People who have done phone banking know that, there are people who are really excited about Mamdani. And there's also a lot of people who are like, Andrew Cuomo's a piece of garbage.
there's a vacuum.
And I don't know if things would definitely not be the same if Janet Mills was 45 years old and had launched her campaign 6 months ago in Maine. I mean, from an ideological perspective, I'm happy about these things. But from the perspective of trying to assess the competence of the Democratic Party as a
Institution
that's even promoting their own agenda, which isn't necessarily mine, in many instances, they can't even do that. It's like trying to watch somebody tie their shoe and they just keep like tying it to other objects. Like, oh, I tied my shoe to the leg of my chair again.
But that is where right. Yeah.
What?
This is where this is an important moment because the base is completely out of step with where the Democratic leadership is, where the DSCC is, what they are. This Haley Stevens, can we please now? This is maybe an easy way to talk about this, Sam. I don't know if you've seen this clip. I don't want to take us to a field. This is number 9, but Do you want to do this?
Yeah,
Because this is the other example. We're talking about Janet Mills. The other Schumer-Gillibrand handpicked candidate is Haley Stevens in Michigan. And she is now kind of floundering. And there was reporting that Mallory McMorrow, who was the other like non-progressive left-wing candidate in the race, has
DNC light.
Yeah, has met with I think Adam Schiff and also Martin Heinrich, who is trying to like move up in Senate leadership, is kind of seeing the writing on the wall with Schumer. Has gotten behind her, so she's like the alternate pick, but. Haley Stevens was the AIPAC, like loving Haley Stevens was Schumer's pick, like straight out the gates, and Gillibrand. But even when we look at who responded to Trump's, it wasn't the State of the Union, whatever it's called, it's the same thing. Elise Stefan, no, Jesus, what's her name? In Michigan.
Ha, you got my disease.
No, I know it's not
Slotkin.
Slotkin. Because she's like a centrist, right? And he was like, this is the future of the Democratic Party because she's like me but young. And now let's push forward somebody who's very similar to her, Haley Stevens. She's falling apart. This was on Off the Record with PBS on Friday, I believe. And this is Craig Mauger of the Detroit News asking her 3 times to condemn increased influence of corporate money in politics. And this is how she responds.
Do you think large corporations have too much influence in politics right now?
I think the voice of the people is very important. And
So is that a yes or no?
I don't necessarily view it like that.
Why not? I mean, this is a lot of energy on the Democratic side right now is on this.
Well, what would be an example of that, Craig?
Well, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
But you said.
Well, here's the thing. I field 50,000 phone calls a year from constituents. I take my cues from people who are calling my office to get help. I've returned millions of dollars to the pocketbooks of Michiganders. That is who I serve.
I think some of your opponents would say an example is healthcare costs are through the roof for average Michigan residents. The healthcare industry gives buckets of money to the people who set the policies. Why isn't anything being done here?
Well, people don't want to see their health care prices increase. Look, I've worked hard in the Congress to lower the cost of prescription drugs. I would say that we have got to protect access to affordable health care, every step of the way. There's been a lot of debates about what this would look like, but we don't want to be in the business as Democrats of taking people's health care away. This is what we see the Republican Party.
Positive. Wait. I mean, she must really not think very highly of this reporter. I mean, with all due respect, she's sitting there completely not answering the question. Right. We're not in the business of taking healthcare away. That was actually not the question. People are frustrated with the increasing costs that are making health insurance increasingly less affordable. And they see a relationship between the existence of the health insurance industry, a completely useless industry, with all due respect to those of you working in it. Like, honestly, you're not doing anything. Like, you're not doing anything. There is absolutely no service that you are providing. It is completely, you're just gatekeeping for money. That's it. You're a toll on a bridge that you had nothing to do with building. You had nothing to do with maintaining. You have nothing to do with ensuring it exists. You just set up a toll, like dudes who would go into a parking lot,
like a troll,
like a troll, exactly. And she can't answer this question. Continue. This is just a complete flounder.
She answers the question of, do you think there's too much corporate influence in politics, was saying, here's why I don't think now's the time to go for Medicare for all.
Yep.
I would say that we have got to protect access to affordable health care, every step of the way. There's been a lot of debates about what this would look like, but we don't want to be in the business as Democrats of taking people's health care away. This is what we see the Republican Party going down the line of over and over again. When I was first elected to Congress, it was pre-existing conditions. That was a fear for people. And now we're seeing the same old playbook. Well, we're not going to, we don't believe in the ACA exchange. We don't believe in what was set up through Obamacare. Now you've got almost 40,000 people in my congressional district that might be priced out of their health care. So yet again, we've got to stand up and defend that. Yes, should we have a holistic conversation on reworking? Maybe we should. But in the meantime, we're playing catch up.
Yeah.
We should.
How honestly could that be any more incomprehensible? I mean, again, like this is just basic competence at the job of communicating to constituents. And I don't, look, she doesn't have, she doesn't even have pat answers.
She's the only, Mallory McMorrow did swear off corporate PAC money, right? It's not, Abdul Sayed is the way in that race. I just want to be clear about that. But like Stevens can't even swear off corporate PAC money. So that's what she's concerned about. The entire answer is because she knows that she's bought and got out ahead of this current wave where, early on in the race where she was like courting APAC money and now it's become toxic. So she is behind in that way. But just to give a sense of like where Democratic leadership is. And when you're just talking about a communicator, even if she was like a centrist, corporatist or whatever, she doesn't even have the ability to answer this question because
Ask me the question.
Okay. Do you think that there is too much influence on do you think there is too much corporate influence in our elections?
I do, actually. I think it's a real problem. And one of the challenges we have as Democrats is how do we go to war with Republicans who are attacking this country?
There you go.
We are faced with the dilemma of a unilateral disarmament. And until we have reform, both in terms of our elections, both in terms of Citizens United, I don't think it makes sense when we are facing the existential threat to our way of life in this country to unilaterally disarm. It is a regrettable and problematic dynamic we have in American politics, but I can tell you, I will say this to Michiganders. I listen to you, and while I would love to walk away from corporate support, I won't do that because I know that this is not a fist fight that we're heading into with Republicans. I need all of these resources.
Well, Representative Stevens, that was a smarter answer than I was anticipating. But what do you say to the fact that the other two major candidates in this race have sworn off corporate PAC money?
Well, frankly, I think we see in them a certain naivete.
Wow.
I don't think they're up to this fight. I don't think they realize what we're going up against. I actually think it's a liability for them because I don't see it reflected in their politics, in their policies, but I do see it reflected in their ability to fight back against the Republicans and what they're doing to this great country.
Can we cut this part out of the broadcast so no one uses it?
McMorrow, don't listen to that.
Yeah, hey.
I mean, this is just basic stuff.
I know.
How do you put someone to run it? There's 50. There's 100 senators. It's going to be, hopefully there'll be 50 Democratic ones. There's 100 senators in this country. Are you telling me that she is the best that we can do? Like
Schumer thinks so.
It's crazy to look at her and Abdul Sayed, somebody who actually is ready for that conversation of what we should build toward and not just maintain something that is collapsing in front of our eyes in Obamacare and the exchanges. No, it's single payer Medicare for all. It's move forward. Or you can't sell people, let's maintain the stuff that's collapsing.
And is that distinguishable at all from the Republicans secretly right now? Because the Republicans want the ACA subsidies to stay. That's the concession they desperately want because it could save their ass in the midterms. She's making the same argument that frontline Republicans are making.
Well, again, like I said, she pivoted to the argument against Bernie, which is that, you don't want to take people's health insurance away. She's talking about that now as the whole structure of Obamacare is collapsing in front of people's eyes.
But the conversation that's going on in her head that leads her to that answer is... This is not a professional politician. It is some corporate lackey you have sent out there to do the job who doesn't know how to respond. Like, why is she getting that defensive? And getting defensive, like, what she's basically saying is like, I'm a corporate stooge, but what are you going to do? Have Bernie be the president? Yeah. That's what her response was. Like, who are you talking to? Like, what are you doing? It's just absurd. The quality of these candidates is garbage. And the reason why, I think part of the reason why they're such garbage that the Democratic leadership and establishment is promoting is because they are completely lost. They are totally rudderless.
Yeah.
When they come up with an ideological perspective, they realize it is founded in nothing. Like, they can't even ignore the own contradictions within their ideology today. That's the problem that they're having. That's, like, let's play your clip from MSNBC, because Ezra Klein, again, has now, like, he keeps, and listen, I don't care about Ezra Klein except for the fact that we know this guy is the guy that when they go on senatorial retreats with the Democratic caucus, they invite him in to give advice. And it all sounds good until you think about it for 5 minutes.
Well, also, I mean, it was the thrust of a question that was asked of me on MSNBC last night. So, like, it is driving coverage. There was also a New York Magazine. I didn't read the article yet, but the cover is Socialism versus Abundance. And it was Bernie and a photo of Ezra Klein. And it was like, this is it, trying to represent the fight within the Democratic Party. It's like, Ezra Klein's a podcaster and a writer. I mean, like, the idea that Bernie Sanders has been at the forefront of a political movement that has continued to grow in popularity, and he is the most popular elected currently politician in the country, not Obama, right? Obama has the hindsight thing going for him. But in terms of people who are currently in politics, his level of favorability is one of the, like, you don't see that kind of favorability for somebody currently active. So that is like, it's not equivalent. Abundance is this AstroTurf thing. It's funded by Reid Hoffman that came out of nowhere like 6 months ago because it's about a book. And it's about repackaging the old centrist policies for a new audience.
And libertarian ones like Tyler Collins.
And the premises of these things are just sort of like, he keeps having to retreat and they keep retreating to sort of like more and more a combination of a fictional revisionist history over the past 15 years and 20 years, really. And sort of a, I don't know, massaged vibes thing. Like, let's be clear. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party has had control of two things, I would say. Or influence over, maybe not direct control, but influence over the past 20 years. And I would say that was labor under the Biden administration and antitrust under the Biden administration.
And you could probably say that those were two kind of labor was maybe Biden taking in Bernie for his endorsement and support. And then 100%. Antitrust was Elizabeth Warren 100%. When she dropped out and helped that coalescence behind him.
100%.
Yes.
That was it.
Yeah.
To claim that in any way the progressives had control over political messaging in this country over the past 20 years is absurd. It is patently absurd. Like, beyond a lie. Now, of course, people forget. People aren't generally as old as I am, doing this. I've been following for 20 years. But it is patently absurd to say that the progressives have won out. Now, if you want to say that, like, hey, when Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer put on, a kente cloth and take a knee, that's a little bit too much. Well, the problem is that it's completely insincere, and everybody knew it.
Exactly, and because it doesn't have a baseline of underlying class-conscious politics about taxing billionaires, where wokeness is not a liability if you're actually a party that tries to aggressively deliver for all people.
Yeah, Zoran's fine with it because Zoran's sincere about the affordability stuff. Zoran he first quoted Toni Morrison saying it's a distraction from away from all these other things. And then recently, in light of this barrage of anti-Semitism from Cuomo, et cetera, says
Islamophobia.
Islamophobia,
Yeah.
And Mamdani said, I still think it is a distraction, but also, I'll quote Toni Morrison again, saying, I reserve the insistence that people should be shocked about it. That's how to deal with this, as opposed to the Democrats who, frankly, want to ride it for political benefit, but don't have any commitment to it beyond that when polling starts to turn.
It's the way they do it, the way that they will sort of like use it as a deflection, or did use it as a deflection, begrudgingly, and then just use it as a deflection. It's just bad politics.
Platner's pro-trans, and it's not. It's just like a part of his whole vision.
He's done videos about it.
Yes.
All right. So
anyway, I was asked about this on MSNBC last night.
Go ahead, set up the clip.
I mean, that's really it. I was asked about it, and I guess so. I've been going on weekend primetime a good amount recently. It's very fun. Catherine Rampell, I think, is a little bit more centrist than I am, and she pushed back a lot in this clip. And then there was also
I think so too.
I think she is a little more
I'm being polite. John Avlon was the guest on next to me, and I didn't know who he was, and now I should probably look these things up, but I had never really gotten this much pushback before on the show. I guess this was a guy, he used to be a speechwriter for Giuliani. He is the co-founder of No Labels, which is the centrist
Bloomberg thing,
501c4, and he ran in 2024 in New York's 1st congressional district, and he lost to a Republican.
He ran as a Democrat.
Yes, but a very right-wing centrist Democrat out on Long Island.
Okay.
Right. I mean, so essentially, former Republican. He was, his big thing, I don't know, 10 years ago was like, he was the radical centrist.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't know that before I teed off on centrism right next to him. So there we go.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the Democratic Party here and whether or not what this upcoming Tuesday means for them. Ezra Klein recently wrote for the New York Times that over the past 15 years, the Democratic Party has made room on its left and closed down on its right. For all the talk of what the Democratic Party should learn from Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani, there should be at least as much talk of what they should learn from Manchin or Golden or Marie Perez or Sarah McBride. The party should be seeking more, not less, internal disagreement. Do you agree with that stance?
No. I don't know what reality Ezra Klein is living in, the fact that the Democratic Party has tacked to its left. In what universe? Yeah. The coalescing around Joe Biden in the 2020 primary, the besmirching of Bernie Sanders supporters, the eschewing of that movement in 2016, and even in this current moment with Zohran Mamdani, who has been a shot in the arm for the Democratic Party, you still have Chuck Schumer refusing to endorse him, and Hakeem Jeffries' endorsement is lukewarm at best. There is a fight right now within the Democratic Party, and Ezra Klein is representing a floundering corporatist centrist flank that is increasingly irrelevant in the party, and he's trying to carry water for them in the Times. I think it's a lucrative thing to do, but it's not necessarily matching the reality.
I love it. I'm so excited to disagree with you. I do, because I could not disagree more. The point Ezra's trying to make is that it takes two wings to fly. And he's trying to say Democrats need to build a Big Ten. And he's not saying you got to choose between Zohran Mamdani and Bernie Sanders and the centrist wing. He's saying Democrats need to compete in more places. You raised a stat earlier that I think is the key one. Why, when Donald Trump's numbers are plummeting among independent voters, he's got 48% strong disapproval. How come the Democratic Party's approval rating is lower as a brand
because
than
of the muddled message that I was just trying to elucidate?
So you believe it's because they're not far left enough?
No, I believe that there needs to be a different approach to politics here, not building a tent and saying we don't necessarily stand for anything, including Ezra advocating for saying that we should run anti-abortion Democrats in red states. So let's throw trans people under the bus. Let's throw women under the bus. Let's just do anything except
reorienting territory, though.
No,
I think he's talking about being practical.
And trying to expand the map. That's what needs to happen here. Is if Democrats are going, how do you expand the map? Is you win in Ohio and you win in Pennsylvania and you win in West Virginia. As much as Democrats hate Joe Manchin, he was the only Democrat who could win statewide office in Manchin.
I'm sorry, but Joe
in
Manchin helped kill the child tax credit, which is the reason the Democrats are lagging behind in affordability right now.
But would it have been better if there were a Republican in that seat?
If the Democrats want to orient themselves behind a working class coalition and use that as the base, that is how you build a durable coalition, not the one that has lost to Trump multiple times.
But if you look at the track record of like Sunrise and Justice Dems and these other, more populist progressive groups,
the base wasn't there. Now the base is there. The base is currently behind it.
They have not gained a single seat
because of the institutional pushback from the Democratic Party. And
because
right now
of the
we're
voters.
seeing the voters are
part of it.
All right, pause it for a second.
Yeah,
listen,
that's the point.
here's the bottom line. There is not a scenario where some crazy progressive Justice Democrat has been running in one of these seats. Justice Democrats have been going after blue state congressional people. The issue isn't whether, Joe Manchin was a fluke from a party that was moving to the right in West Virginia. He is the last Democrat who's going to win there. What's his face was a former Democrat, the governor now. They had to leave the Democratic Party. The biggest stat of which is in 2008, 50% of non-college educated white people thought the Republican Party was to the left of Democrats on race. In 2008. So there was a reorienting. The bottom line is there's one thing that's going to win, in a red state, and that is an economic populist message.
And every time I kept trying to say working class, I kept getting cut off. I was just trying to finish my sentence with 7 or 5 more words. And it was when I would say that, it was there was this anxiety from that other guest. And then, Rampel was kind of in agreement that I couldn't even get out the final words of that sentence, which would have made my argument very clear. But, hopefully I got across to people.
But sequentially, the bottom line is, the issue is not that there's no room for diversity in the Democratic Party on a host of issues. But the bottom line is, what is the primary thing that makes Democrats Democrats, whether they're running in a red state or a blue state?
Yeah.
And they have no answer for that. They have no answer for that. It is one thing to say you want a big tent, but anybody who's ever built a tent knows that you need to have a tent pole. What is the tent pole that makes the Democratic Party? That is the problem the Democrats have. And there is one obvious one sitting out there, and that is economic populism, as defined by just FDR politics, you could say. And the problem is, too many of these Democrats, they sell themselves as being socially conservative, and it is a way to distract from the fact that they do not fit into that one tent pole. You cannot have a big tent without a tent pole.
Right.
And all they lead with, whether it's in Ezra Klein or wherever, is the argument that you need to open up the tent doors, but they don't ever say, what is the tent pole? What is the thing that is holding up the tent? Put it, look at Ezra Klein, this clip, put it in my tweet.
Sam had a tweet. I had mentioned this earlier in the segment too, the quote about Schumer saying that, for every blue collar worker that we lose in Western.
Start with this. This is from Klein's piece in the New York Times. From 2012 to 2024, Democrats moved sharply left on virtually every issue. Now, I will say the Democrats have moved to the left. Have they moved sharply left? I don't think so. But have they moved left on a lot of these issues? Without a doubt. Marriage equality. Barack Obama came in, he wasn't going to do it. And they moved left on that. They moved left on expanding Social Security. In the 20s, again, 2020, on labor and on antitrust. Sharply left on every issue. They did so often arguing they were finally representing communities that had long suffered from too little representation. Now you see the pivot there. He's defining left as explicitly and exclusively identitarian politics, right? I'm just representing the various constituencies within. I will also say they did not move left on education. They moved to the right on education.
Yeah.
In education is pretty large. Also, austerity.
And foreign policy, by the way, I mean, Obama came in on an anti-war message against the Iraq war, and then we funded a genocide under Biden.
This was what they were told to do by the online voices and the professional groups that claim to represent these committees. This is just absolutely like
petty.
It's petty and it's reductive.
Yeah.
But it went wrong. Democrats became more uncompromising on immigration and lost support amongst Hispanic voters.
Yeah, that contradicts your whole premise.
What is uncompromising? I want to know what it is.
Oh, he means uncompromising in terms of like to the left?
Wait,
I'm sorry. That was so dumb that I thought he actually made the point that was accurate, which is that they became hawkish on immigration under the Kamala campaign, transnational criminal organizations, blah, 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 blah.
Listen,
no, they didn't.
Barack Obama deported more people in his 8 years than we had seen in decades. Was the uncompromising like DACA? Like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious about what that is. There were activists who were saying, hey, man, you got to have a thing. But Joe Biden ran on the fact that they went and provided a compromise to the Republicans. He bragged it was a Republican bill. Does anybody remember this?
That was their big 2024
memory hold.
Yeah.
That was 2023.
He's probably saying some people said Latinx.
Right? Like Langford.
Latinx.
The Democrats tried to make a deal with Marco Rubio in 2013, I think it was. The big comprehensive immigration reform. Democrats have done nothing but go and attempt to compromise and have articulated not a single, I cannot define what the Democratic position was. There was 10 years where I think it was strong border, path to citizenship, but gotta wait your turn in line. That was the uncompromising position on immigration. It's absurd. All right, continue. Lost support amongst the Hispanic. They moved left on guns and student loans and climate. They didn't move left on guns. They stood exactly where they were. And in fact, the Supreme Court moved to the right. I mean, I remember when Reagan was shot, the Brady bill.
I'm sorry, what is student loan debt at now? Still record levels? Great job moving left on that. You have to be effective.
He's saying that in there, and again, who would, like, the Democrats, like, who is he saying who the Democrats are at any given time shifts, right? Like, yes, there was a part of the Democratic Party that was saying, forgive Democratic loans. I mean, forgive, I should say, student loans. It didn't happen.
They should have.
You know who just forgave, sort of loosened up on loans? Donald Trump. Lost ground with young voters, as if that was it. Climate and student loans is why they lost ground with young voters.
Nothing about the genocide?
They moved left on race. What does that mean to move left on race?
Well, he said in that interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates that he thinks that if we take too much of a historical perspective about, Black Americans' experience into account, that we miss the current granular moment here. So perhaps he means just like having a consciousness about what we did to Black people.
They moved left on education.
Yeah.
Like, in what possible universe did the Democrats, in adopting a race to the top after No Child Left Behind, both of which are completely charter-laden, corporate imposition, high-stakes testing, in what possible universe was that moving left on education?
The correlation and causation of all this entire paragraph is messed up.
And then, and they lost ground with Asian American voters.
This next part's crazy.
And then they moved left on economics and lost ground with working class voters.
Huh?
Okay. Let's play. Do we have that clip? I mean, I took a picture of it, but I think we could actually even play that
Well,
clip.
a good fan put it right beneath your tweet. So
here is a clip from Chuck Schumer
in 2016
on in the run up to the 2016 election. I think it was like probably September or summer or whenever it was on C-SPAN.
This is the second point. For every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2-3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin.
Social media.
The voters who are most out there figuring out what to do are not the blue-collar Democrats. They are the college-educated Republicans who lean Republican or independent and in the suburbs.
Well, mission accomplished.
You did it.
In fact, half the people you were sitting on that panel with, Elise Jordan, John Avalon.
Yeah.
I think Rappel has always, I don't know, probably been a Democrat, were former Republicans. I mean, they were mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Except for it didn't work.
Well, it's all, yeah. I mean, and when you talk about losing ground with Latino voters, does the Democratic consultant class refer to those voters as working class as well? Or blue collar? Because it feels like we're talking about this caricature of a white blue collar worker in rural America that they have completely lost ground to and don't seem to be actually trying to appeal to at all, trying to undercut a candidate like Graham Plattner, who comes from a rural state and is trying to advocate for policies from a progressive perspective on that front. They talk about Latino voters and working class voters as if they're separate. But in many ways, the Latino vote going to Trump in this way was because of the failures of the Democrats not to act more aggressively on the economy, was because it was a cost of living situation. And so much so that they put aside his racism and his xenophobia about Latino people because they were so decimated via their material conditions. And so we lost ground with those voters as well because of a lack of urgency and economic populism from the Democrats.
Market-based, it's crazy that the market-based climate approach didn't encourage young voters who have no investments. Who's excited about our approach to climate change besides investors? Just a statistic here, about half of Border Patrol agents, Hispanic. So why did they do so good with and make such inroads with, say, especially in South Texas, Latinos? Because they're giving them jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe the Democrats should fucking try it.
It is. It's fascinating to me, though, that he gets away with making those descriptions and assessments. It's so. Aside from the complete lack of nuance and simplicity, it is also just not factually accurate. And it's taken as some type of gospel. But I will say this, you see, and I do think the Democratic Party has moved to the left on some things, without a doubt.
There was a while they moved to the left on trans issues. Hillary Clinton had good State Department policies about passports. Remember the North Carolina thing that happened in 2017 with the, was a sporting event, an all-star game or something like that? And they were good at it because they thought it was easy wind in their sails. There was no commitment to it beyond that. And now that
they did not move in the past 20 years to the left on abortion at all.
Right.
100% no. Hillary Clinton was very, very specific in the mid-aughts that we need to widen the tent for abortion. It was ineffective then. It would be ineffective now. Whatever heyday he was talking about, under Clinton, we lost the House. Under Obama, we lost 1,000 elected statewide officials. There has been a slow deterioration of the Democratic Party as an institution over the past 20 or 30 years. Completely lost now as to where it is. What is the pole holding up the tent? You want to expand the tent, first you need to start with the fundamental thing that is supporting the tent.
Exactly.
And they never, ever articulate that. Because the only answer they have is either we need strategic deregulation is the core principle of the Democratic Party. I mean, honestly, like it's either like we're not Trump, we're not Republicans. All they don't say we're not Republicans enough, frankly. What is the tent pole? What is the fundamental reason for the Democratic Party?
Yeah. Right. And their argument, and it's the same reason they don't endorse Mamdani, is that it has to be very specific and case by case in different districts. And it's like, no, it doesn't, because there needs to be a nationalizing of this brand. Like the idea that this is hyper local and that the Democratic Party doesn't have any central planks of what it stands for is like that. The Avalon later gave me an example later in that clip. That was a good place to end. But it was like, this example from 1977. It's like, bro, we're not in 1977 anymore.
What is this example?
There was one guy, Simon Bazelon, who I think did some of the work that people are citing on this. He's citing Heidi Heitkamp, who did all that only to get blown out by a Republican.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
listen, I remember Claire McCaskill losing.
Yeah.
All right. I remember Heidi Heitkamp losing.
Yeah. And that's the thing, though, is in this age, branding is national. What the parties stand for is national. And that's what Trump has been so effective at is like he uses the bully pulpit to say what he stands for, and by extension, the Republican Party.
And they're obsessed with outperforming the party. You know who outperformed the Democratic Party in the last elections?
Abortion rights.
Dan Osborne.
Oh, Dan Osborne. That too. But to the point about like we should throw abortion under the bus. Abortion rights are more popular than the Democratic Party in these states. The ballot referendums outrun the party and their candidates. The idea that there should be another issue that we abandon to the right is like actual suicide. But it does enrich consultants who do not want a working class party, who do not want a party that's based on things like people power, volunteering, canvassing. They make their money by running ads that are very expensive in specific districts that they think they can hyper target in these macro, like in this data focused way. It is a toxic cancer. It's ruining our democracy.
Like, I think like the idea again of marginal positions and by marginal I mean as defined as to what is going to be the central reason for the Democratic Party. So like I don't agree with Graham Plattner on guns. There's no way I agree with him on guns. But the bottom line is, does he represent a fundamental perspective that Democrats should have? You can afford to have a candidate in Texas who is squishy on abortion. You can afford to have a candidate in Nebraska that is squishy on immigration if there is a fundamental principle that guides the Democratic Party. And the leadership, they have nothing. They have nothing to offer it as an operative device. They have nothing to offer as a political program. Nothing. It is all, we're not Republicans. Like the pitch of, well, I am, pro-choice in the first 3 weeks of a pregnancy, and running against someone who is anti-choice, and then your politics are basically a blur after that, does nothing for you. You're not going to appeal to anti-abortion folks by just being anti-abortion, because they have the original one. Like, what are you offering? Yeah. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.